what's really hood? Everybody out there in Hoodlum land. Uh, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting night tonight. We got some funky stuff. It's gonna be deep tonight. It's gonna be deep tonight. Kind of had some inspiration this morning, walking around listening to my headphones, and some stuff was said, and some rap songs. And I was like, man, that's pretty dope. Let's talk about that tonight. So, it's Monday Eve, unfortunately, or fortunately, you're alive. So I guess that's a fortunate thing. What say you, Webs?
I say that, hold on a second. I'm trying to get this. I say that it's Monday Eve and the Dodgers game is on, and I hope it doesn't end like last night.
I want to say that's one of the probably the best ending to any baseball game I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so you'd think I'd be real bitter about it, and I kind of was a little bit yesterday, but like I really have to say, like I think both teams played really well. I think people are humans and they make mistakes. And yeah, even though my team didn't win, I still think it was a really exciting end. And the whole game itself was a seesaw. It kept you on your toes. So I'm not mad about it.
Appreciate that, Doctor Terry C. Um, the I, I will tell you this: I have a man crush on the Tampa Bay Rays organization. I have a man crush on the Oakland A's organization. All the small market teams that somehow every year are competitive. To me, it's like that is super dope because in baseball, like small market is death. You know, not to say that the Dodgers haven't, because they stole Andrew Friedman from the Rays to run the Dodgers. So obviously, they also understood what the hustle was. But it's very interesting to me with limited funds. Like, I think the entire payroll for the Rays is like $28 million. And Mookie Betts, who I love Mookie Betts. I really like him. I'm not a Dodgers fan, but I like Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts had like a 300 and some odd $1 million contract he just got. So
12
they're
years.
an entire team for what Mookie Betts is making. And they're in the same place. And I think that has some very interesting consequences for education, right? I think that given the fact that I know I can't spend a certain amount of money, how do I continue to have a contending ball club in the fact that the Tampa Bay Rays play in the AL East? So you're not talking about uh, uh, you got the Yanks, they're going to spend money. The Red Sox, with years when they don't cheat, they're going to spend money. The Orioles are going to spend money. So I really am in awe of small market baseball teams doing like dope stuff.
I've
But
thought a lot about how baseball, I think, is the sport most similar to education because you have this like it's one of the sports where you have to have an all team effort. It can't be just one person carries everybody. Like at some point you have to, defend, and at some point you have to be on offense, and it requires this whole big team, and the manager can change just like your principal can change, and the members of the team can change, and that can really affect like the dynamic. And it's probably true about other sports too. I just pay the most attention to baseball. I feel like there is a lot of it's long and tedious.
it is.
I don't find baseball long and tedious, but anyway,
It's like
um
life.
dynamics seem to shift. I feel like dynamics shift more dramatically with changes of personnel in baseball than in other teams. And I don't know why that is. Maybe that's just strictly my perception, but we
But
had a
also,
lot of people watching tonight.
I just think that also like you never know who's going to come through in a baseball game. Like last night, that dude had two postseason at bats,
He
two,
was batting under 200.
and he goes in the hit of his, and they end up winning that World Series. He's the MVP. Period. He's the
Yeah.
MVP. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what else he
Yeah.
does. He doesn't do anything. He is the most valuable player because without
Yep.
two outs, two strikes, down to, I mean, they can say you can say what you want about Kenley Jansen. Still a pretty good closer. All right. He put pressure on your center fielder, on your catcher to make mistakes that they usually wouldn't make. And
Yep.
that's why I dig baseball because I think
Yeah.
basketball, one dude can take over the whole game and can win you a championship. Football, if you got a better team than somebody else, you could. In baseball, you have no idea what's going to happen.
And there's no running out the clock in baseball.
Oh, facts. It could be a 15-hour
Yeah.
game if it happened to. That's
Yep.
true. Absolutely true. All right, so
Anyway.
tonight what we're gonna get down with is avoiding the rocking chair, and like one of the the major issues that is creeping up with the distance learning hustle is the fact that people are doing a lot, but we're not actually progressing, right? So a lot have been said about, yo, yeah, we're doing this and that and this other stuff, and I'm doing this and this, but in the end, you still hear teachers talking about kids failing and people not having internet, et cetera, which again, to any legislative people who are listening, I think this needs to be the next moment. Internet for everybody in the country, period, regardless of where they live, what language they speak, how much money they make or don't make. That should be something everybody has as an expectation of being an American. Go ahead, Webs.
That's a big movement in software engineering is equity with regard to the internet and freedom on the internet. So, electronic freedom foundation,
Mm.
I think is a big player in that space. I think it's Electronic Freedom Foundation. It's F, but
I mean, we also have a situation where right now there are lobbyists for all your big ISPs who are going into states right now and trying to prevent states
Electronic
from
Frontier Foundation.
states from creating their own internet services.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna look out there. Make sure that you. I know it in Nevada. Our legislative session starts in January. That's one of the things I'm going to be speaking to my legislatures about. Is like for real, we need to go ahead and get this. Not showing us right now that everybody needs equitable access to the internet, and not at 25 megabits per second, but at a rate in which they're going to actually be able to contribute online, peruse things online, and do what they need to do online. So, Webs, for our Ask a Software question to begin us tonight, yo, when you talk about load management as a software developer, what kind of strategies are you utilizing in order to make sure that you're not spinning your wheels, that you're actually progressing and becoming successful as you do what you need to do?
There's kind of two layers to it. There's like what we do as a team, and then there's personally like what I've done in my own like career path or whatever. As a team, we I think a lot of what helps propel us forward is like the structure we use to like work through our work. So we use a Kanban style where we have these columns and our work is written in stories. It's like vertical chunks of work and those move from column to column. So we start out and we make sure the story is ready to go. It's very clear like what the expectations are for what complete looks like. And then we get together as a small group and kick off that story and say, okay, we're all clear on what the expectation is for what done looks like in this story. Then we actively work on it. Then it goes to desk check where we sit with our QA and we say, here's the work that we did and we, demonstrate it or whatever. Then the QA checks it for errors and then it's finally closed. And I think the reason why that structure helps move us forward is it's very easy to fall into scope creep where you think, oh, as long as I'm working on this, I'm also going to work on this. Or Bob just messaged me and said he also needs this work done, so I'm going to do this. It really helps you hone in and focus on, nope, I need to get this done. I'm responsible for talking about it in stand-up every morning. If every morning for 2 weeks straight, all I'm saying is, oh, I'm making progress and I'm not actually like moving it to its next stages, either that story is too big, there's too much work in it, or I am obviously, for some reason or another, not getting through my work in time. So that as a team is one of the strategies that we use. Me personally, about 6 months into my time at ThoughtWorks, I had my first review. And during that review, like what you do is present, hey, here's what I did over the last 6 months. And this is the direction I'm going. It's very much about like you own what your path is going to be. And the person one of the people who was part of that review had said, okay, for the next 6 months, here's what I'd like you to do. I want to see you pick 2 or 3 topics. Totally up to you what you want those to be. One of them has to be technical. And I'll get to that comment in a second. And you, I want you to just focus on those 3 things. So anything else that comes up, say no to it if it doesn't fit into one of those 3 buckets. And I started doing that. And there were so many things that I had to say no to because immediately when somebody asked me to do something, my thought was, does it fit into one of these 3 buckets? No? Okay, then I'm going to say no to it. I'm not going to do it. It was really hard, but what I found was I was moving forward in those fields much faster than I had been in the previous 6 months because I really made a conscious effort that if whatever it was someone was offering or whatever it was I wanted to pick up didn't relate to one of those three buckets of, progress I wanted to make, then I just didn't do it. And so I found that to be really helpful because I was doing a lot of things in those previous 6 months, but I wasn't making a lot of progress forward because I was doing so many different types of things. So I was still trying to feel out like what I wanted to do in that field, in that space. But once I honed in and focused on those three buckets, then that's when I saw I was like rocketing forward in terms of feeling like I was making a lot of progress because it gave me like a very clear focus point for what I wanted to accomplish. And that was like, I still use that strategy to this day. Like whenever I feel like I'm all over the place, I decide like, okay, what are the two or three things that are most important? Everything else gets a no.
Facts.
And so yeah, Terry's comment, go ahead.
So Dr. Cullen is here. Shout out to Cullen. Scrum and Lean Six Sigma. Webbs, you got a little experience with those.
Scrum, yes. Lean Six Sigma, no. I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar.
That's
Like
the
I can't.
Toyota hustle.
Oh, okay. So I know it, but I don't know that I know it, I think. Yeah. As an educator with Scrum Master and Lean Six Sigma, it's advantageous to talk this language with businesses and other stakeholders. It has been more handy than I would have thought. I totally agree with that. I think there's a lot of strategies that we can take that are useful. And I think it creates a similar vocabulary. We're aiming for college and career readiness. This is the language of college and career readiness. One of my friends just got certified as an agile certified professional, which was a high demand thing from his company. Like they really want to move toward more agile strategies. Okay. Lean Six Sigma is Kanban. Okay. Gotcha. But yeah, so he just got that certification because his company wants to move more towards agile. So even companies are still like moving into agile frameworks and stuff. And I don't really know why like we haven't adopted some of those strategies. I don't think all those strategies are necessarily appropriate for school. I think some of them can be really beneficial in terms of like helping kids better learn their own style of working and learning and having them take ownership of their own workspace.
Don't those strategies help schools and school districts become more efficient as well? Because I think about the amount of waste that is, like, school systems to me are the embodiment of waste. If you put a definition and had a picture in the dictionary, you would see a school system or a school building there. The amount of paper we waste, the amount of talent we waste, the amount of man or woman hours we waste. There's a lot of just straight. If you actually analyzed the system and said this is the best way to move forward in order to actually utilize these people's talents and what you have more effectively and more efficiently, I think that we would have better outcomes as well. Not just looking at students, but looking at the system in and of itself. Because I think that is when you're having conversations with people right now, and we're still talking about how much does a pallet of paper cost in Clark County, Nevada?
I have no idea. Isn't it like $5,000?
Right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about $5,000. So if you're talking about $5,000 of paper, I'm going to say that right now, the vast majority of individuals, are there kids who are still being served with packets that are being run off or whatever, but the vast number of students who are going to school in paperless environments right now. Wouldn't this be a perfect time to kind of jump that off?
I have heard of a few, this wouldn't be a school cost, but I've heard of a few classrooms where teachers are asking parents to print things off.
Facts.
But I think this goes to like, prior to the pandemic, it was, we don't have the money for that. We can't do X, Y, Z. But once that was no longer, like once you didn't have a choice, like once it was, no, every kid needs a device or they can't go to school, then suddenly we find the devices, we find the money, whatever. And because it's no longer an option, as much as there are a lot of things that suck about the pandemic, like this has forced change. And it's no longer, oh, we don't have the money, we can't find it. It's, we'll figure something out. Otherwise, kids can't go to school. So, and I don't understand why there's the push to go back when, like, we've put all this infrastructure into place now. Like, that I don't get. Like, I know some people have said, oh, the mental health thing, whatever. And I think that is part of it. But I think we're also assuming that going back will improve the mental health. And I don't know that that's necessarily the case. So
There is,
that's just my thoughts on
yeah,
it.
I
And
mean,
yes, there are a lot of people that profit from the inefficiencies.
absolutely.
Projects. I think about like how I see projects run in a large school district and how like different departments won't talk to each other because they're like high school mean girls about it. Like, I'm not working with that department because in 1998, Susan said at the Christmas party that I wasn't a fun person. So I'm never speaking to them ever again. Like, it's just, it's so petty. And unfortunately, like most of the people that get put in those places are just teachers. I don't think just teachers like in a super derogatory way, like, but they have the background in education and skills to be a teacher and maybe and probably were a fabulous teacher. They do not have project manager skills in most cases. So now you have someone in a position who's supposed to be managing a project that doesn't have project management skills, and also in a very like militaristic, you must report to the person above you and you cannot do anything else but report to the person above you type of environment. So cross-pollinating ideas becomes antithetical to the culture that exists.
And that
Oh,
so
and that's 100% true.
so I mean, I think the move back to schools is not an educational issue. It is a childcare issue. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with kid Bobby learning how to read.
Mm-hmm.
That's a latent function. And I think that's another problem that we have is that schools are are central to people eating in terms of just breakfast, lunch, and snacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Childcare for people.
Yep.
Also, again, access to services. So, counseling services, mental health services, dental and health services, which is kind of a shame, right? It's very, very sad that an institution that was built to make sure that your kid could grow up and get a job is now central to all these other little pieces of your life. And then when something like this happens, suddenly all those things shut down because we were running it's like I think about it like the Internet of Things, right? And now, in theory, that's a great idea, but really, when you think about it, that's pretty stupid, right? If everything is on the internet and someone hacks into your house, then they have control of all your stuff. Rather than if one thing was on this, my toaster is not internet. It doesn't need to be. I don't need an internet Wi-Fi enabled toaster. I just make my toast and keep it moving. But I think there's a lot of
That's how they get you in horror movies.
that is true. I think there's a lot of perhaps reorganization we need to think about as a society as well to say a teacher's job is supposed to teach, not to be, you know, a quasi counselor. Not to say that we don't do things like that, but it should not be part of my skill set to be a board certified counselor, dental assistant, medical assistant, help your kid with their glasses. Like that's way too much. And then you're asking this person also to look at the NEPF and make sure that you're whatever you're doing what you need to do. So um, yeah, I mean that's it's interesting. I think that goes right on to the idea that we're trying to get at, which is that rocking chairs, man. Like I think right now this is rocking chair time. People are rocking chairs, rocking, thinking that they're doing a lot of work, but they're staying in the same place. And I don't know if you're not a Twitter, somebody on Twitter or on any of the Facebook groups that are out there where people are talking about this stuff. It's a really interesting place to start reading like people's thoughts and ideas and things about where they're spending their energies right now as teachers. And the frustration level is like off the charts right now. When I'm gonna let you comment first before because I've got a very not controversial but an interesting take on this. Go ahead, Webbs.
I
Anything?
don't. I don't have anything.
Nothing. All right. So this is what I'm. This is my. This is the interesting take, which is not so interesting if we thought thinking about it, right? So for the last 17 years, I've been a teacher. In the last 14 here in Clark County, and at no point at no point has there been a real constructive, positive relationship between the colleges of education in the state and the largest school district in the country, or the fifth largest school district in the country, right? Where you have a situation where there is um, the school district who's receiving supposedly finished teachers from a university, right? People who know what they're doing, right? There's never been the situation where we have to retrain these people over and over again. Like, what are you doing with these people that we still have to go and invest hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars over their career in order to get them to be proficient at what we want them to be proficient? That conversation didn't happen. So that's the first like real inefficiency in the system, right? You are creating people, graduates, who cannot actually do the job, right? Think about when we went to. I mean, I never went to undergrad to get my. I do not have an undergraduate degree in education, which I'm kind of glad about. But think about how many instructional technology courses you had as an undergrad. How many instructional technology. But look at, and I challenge you to do this. Challenge you, teacher people and people looking at this situation here. Go and look at your local university and go and check their syllabus for this upcoming semester or this current semester, upcoming semester. How many instructional technology classes is the College of Education actually running? Challenge you to go find it out.
I do have a funny story, actually. So I have to say, shout out to Eastern Michigan University, because I feel like I got a phenomenal education there for being a teacher. And part of that, so I had one instructional technology course, and the highlights of this course were being able to create a seating chart in Excel and add pictures to it, which for like 2003 was pretty advanced. Another thing that I learned was how to do self-directed PowerPoints and add the little buttons so kids can navigate themselves, which is a trolley that I rode clear into 2010. So it lasted me a good, 7, 8 years probably. And that's still a drum that I can beat successfully. That's still a thing that people will use today. So I feel like it was cutting edge for the time. Those were air quotes, by the way. It was cutting edge for the time. And yet I feel like I know so many folks who didn't have anything even remotely close to that, even, graduating when I became a teacher. So or a couple years after I became a teacher. So new grads in 2010, 2011, I was still oh, how do I integrate this technology stuff? It's so crazy. Why is that not just a basic?
We're not talking about 2011. We're talking about 2019.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why? And I wonder why that is. Where is the disconnect there? Why are we not seeing more integration of technology into teacher
in the colleges of education? People who don't know how to turn the computer on, right? So you've been teaching that same syllabus for 35 years and I'm not going to check. So fundamentally, unless you fix the colleges of ed, right, and say, this is what we need in order to have people who can help our students be college career ready. This is what it needs to look like. And there can't be any, I've been doing this for 35. This is what the world has changed. So speaking to some of the younger teachers that are in my orbit, and you start talking to them about stuff. And again, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm young in teacher years, but I'm not a spring chicken right out of college anymore. And for those for those teachers who are in their early 20s, mid 20s, to have no functional idea about how to do basic things on their iPad, basic things on their computer, that does not give. So now you're fundamentally reliant on the school district to find people who are proficient, right? Why are we having so many teachers right now saying, "Oh my God, I didn't sign up for this"? It ain't no freaking. And I'm gonna throw this up. This is true, but if that was absolutely true, we wouldn't be in the hellhole we currently sit in. So
I think for me, the operative word there is some. There are some innovators. That is true.
Absolutely.
Some.
But I mean, if you just take a quick stroll through social media, the sum is a very small minority. The most of us are going through a situation right now in which people are leaving the profession. I just had two of my friends tell me on Friday that was some two teachers at their school building's last day. It was like, I just can't deal with it anymore. We have people who are leaving the profession not solely because they're not good teachers, but again, webs. The internet has been around for how many years? But school districts didn't move until a pandemic forced them to ensure that their employees could compete. And this is where I'll get on my big high horse here, right? You can't talk college and career readiness. You can't do that. And teach. I feel you. I feel you. I feel you. I'm gonna leave that one off the broadcast, but I feel you. I definitely feel you. My beef is, if you're saying the 21st century webs is going to be dominated by knowledge workers, people are working remotely, people are working internationally, then the school system has to reflect that, right? Wouldn't that make sense? Like, I can't continue to say college career ready. We're a college career. No.
I agree with you. And here's something I was just thinking about. Like, I wonder if you gave every teacher, right, all the technology they could want, need, whatever. I would like to believe, I hope, maybe that I'm being overly optimistic, but I would like to believe that given all the technology they could ever want, the majority of teachers would learn how to use it. You'd have very few who are like, I'm going to just put this off to the side and not use it. Even that said, I think back to Joyce's story about the iPad cart.
Oh, yeah.
Just shove it out in the hallway because I don't want to use it. I don't need that. So while Joyce is an amazing technology integration teacher, a teacher who uses technology in her classroom, when she first started out, it was, nope, I'm shoving this iPad cart out into the hallway. And I wonder why that is. Is it that is it just a one more thing? Is it that, because like, that's not something I can understand. If you handed me I would be the first one in line wanting an iPad
What was the rest of her story, though? What was the rest of her story? So I pushed that cart into her room, and she was like, nah, I'm good. So I was like, it's staying in your room. Now, you can do what you want. You can put decorate it. You could put a smiley face on it, whatever. It ain't leaving your room. The second part of the story, though, is her partner. I was going in there showing her how to use the thing and stuff like that, and she's doing all kind of crazy stuff in there. And she saw what the kids in that classroom were doing and said, oh, my God, I want my class to look like that as well. So I think with people who are, if you are shown the power of the device and the strategies, I think, and again, I'm going to err on the side of teachers are people who want to help students become successful in life. They're going to say, wow, I didn't know that could do that. Let me take that and let me do funky stuff with it. But you can't have a scenario, though, when you want someone, and I'm going to just use the Clark County School District as an example. When you know that certain things are coming down the pike, and you wait until the last possible minute to say, you know what, let's throw this stuff at you very, very quickly. That's some bullcrap, man. And that's some stuff that's going to frustrate you as somebody who's new into the situation.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, this is super interesting. We teach classroom management for traditional roles, not with tech. New teachers struggle with management, so it's one more struggle. And it does look very different. And I think it does require, especially in distance learning, it requires a certain amount of trust. It requires a certain like different mindset, and less so of the like prison mindset, which is really difficult. Like this assumption that if I can't see you, you're probably doing something wrong. And even if you're doing something wrong, how wrong is it really? Is it searching for Among Us instead of doing my math assignment? Okay, the world's not going to end because I searched for Among Us.
But I think that is a very deep comment, right? Because I'm going to go and say again that the school system is based on the prison system. That's what it is. It is a prison mentality. When we call that classroom management, right? The idea if I have to control these people, because if I don't control them, they will not do what I need to say. Which I've always found is, as a African American, I've always found is that, this little weird, okay, they got to write the straight lines. Don't talk. You can't talk to your friends in the hallway. Where does that exist in real life? It does not. In no way, no other than prison. In regular human society, at no point am I forced to walk in a straight line, not speak to my friends, et cetera, et cetera. So we have this scenario in which we are telling teachers, this is the mindset we want you to come to your classroom with. That's a different conversation and a more scary conversation, because when we did our anti-racism work with PBS this whole summer, that was like the things we harped on over and over again. You cannot have a scenario in which the classroom is a control center, right? One would hope that even with the 5-year-olds that I deal with now online, and even Christian, who drives me absolutely insane because he unmutes himself every opportunity he gets and interrupts the lesson and says, hey, Mr. Lang, I just drew this picture. Christian, you just showed me that picture 3 seconds ago, but I'm going to go look at the picture again or whatever. I'm not going to mute him. Christian, can you please mute yourself? He does it, and we keep it moving. But I think that there's an ideology that needs to shift when we start talking about education, because I don't think, in the grand scheme of things, that the people management strategies that are necessary in order to work with technology are that much different than the people management strategies for in the classroom. If I trust you inherently, until you give me a reason not to trust you, generally that's how things work. I do not go into and I may be a teacher in minority here. I have never had some kind of long, complex behavior management plan where hit the red button or whatever. I ain't hating on people to do the red button, green button, yellow button, whatever it is. That's just not what I do. The only thing I say is, yo, fam, this is the team. This is how we get down. Don't treat anybody any differently than what you want them to get down with. So, in the grand scheme of things, that's what the deal is. I'm going to throw that comment on that side just started. Kelly?
Yes! 100%. That's also how teachers are treated.
Facts.
You don't get the freedom to go to the bathroom when you want to. You're micromanaged. You have somebody that's, pops into your room at random, sits there and judges you for 5 seconds and then leaves. 100%.
It's the in the building thing. The in the building part of her comment is the deepest part.
Especially now. And you see it from administrators, and you see it from fellow teachers, and you see it from parents. If I can't see you, you're clearly not working. And this is not a struggle unique. This is not a new struggle for remote workers. It's a whole culture shift when you're talking about moving. Let me back that up. It can be a whole culture shift, because I think that there are, because I think that there are super manager types or supervisor, we're going to call them, who are leaders in organizations who are always going to be fine with moving to remote work because they've always trusted their people. And then there's a handful who were never going to trust their people because they didn't even trust them when they were in the same building. And then you have this in between who didn't realize that they had some level of comfort because they could see you. And now that they can't, they're starting to question it. And those people can be guided, I think. They just have to recognize that, no, I'm doing my work. I am motivated to work. If you give people, people are motivated to work.
Yeah. I mean, most people are people who want to do well, who want to have good reputations, who want to do. This is not why are we assuming the worst about humanity every moment of the time? That is when we start, and that's the rocking chair mentality, right? We're gonna go in. If it looks like the person is moving, then yes, we're making progress, and we're not doing anything. Again, we have kids right now. And you're talking about mental health, etc. We got kids right now who are getting 12, 13 assignments a day to turn in by the end of the day, who are not getting opportunities to. And we kind of talked about the distance thing, the hustle earlier, and why there should be this emphasis on the asynchronous, the on-demand part. If you're talking about mental health, if it's an on-demand lesson where I can get it when I'm ready to get it, I no longer have the struggle of, oh my God, I'm going to show up to, think of the anxiety. And this was brought up to me by a third grader on GChat on Friday. She didn't have her work ready for the teacher for her live session. She's chatting with me about the anxiety of having to go into that Google Meet, knowing she didn't do her work. And you're like, all right, really, fam? Like, are you telling me that right now in the United States, I should worry about whether I've got my math worksheet turned in Google Classroom rather than getting my own mental faculties and being just, I'm good, my family's good, whatever happened. And this young lady, she shoots me G chats every day. Mr. Lane, how are you? And we have these little conversations back and forth. And I always ask her, sitting there, what are you supposed to be doing? Well, I've got this and that and this and this, and then you got this and this. And you're like, oh, this kid has to be a project manager. She has to do a web type job at in third grade with no actual structures to keep those things organized for her. That's terrifying.
And the thing that I will harp on this forever. You know it's a pandemic, right? Like people are losing their jobs. You have families that are worried about getting kicked out of their houses at insane proportions. I mean, it's not good normally, but it's also not good now. They're worried about where their food is going to come from. And then on top of that, we're going to pile on a bunch of assignments. Like people, like I am a fully grown adult who is pretty good at managing like my own emotions and mental health issues. And I still struggle from day to day. I can't imagine what a child who suddenly was cut off from all of their friends
Mm-hmm.
feels like. Like that is a complete upheaval of your everyday life, of those expectations and the things you're excited about, and all of that just taken away. And we're all acting like we should just continue to move forward, like everything is normal. I don't know, I haven't seen anything that's like, oh, maybe we should give people lighter workloads or give them extra time off or
Or make the
literally
work
anything.
make the work worth my time. All right. So the young lady she's telling me about the stuff that she has to do, and there's a lot of worksheets and a lot of busy work and stuff like that. Because again, with the rocking chair mentality, it's if I give you more stuff, it looks like I'm working, right? The more stuff
I gotta
when
check off those grades.
you know what I'm saying, and it get everyone knows
And
I'm at
I get that too. Like I've totally been there. Where like I don't know, I just need a grade for this and I am at my wit's end and I don't know what else to do. So here, have this busy work assignment so that I can check off this grade in my grade book. Like I understand that. It is so hard. It's a hard place to be in as a teacher. And also like those you can move to a place where that happens less. Like so if you acknowledge, yes, this is what I'm doing, and you at least are moving in a direction where, okay, I'm going to try to set things up for myself so that happens less and less and less and less until you're not doing it anymore in small little incremental, like quitting smoking.
yeah, but I think also though it is endemic of the system, right?
Oh,
So
100%.
if you're
Yeah.
talking about the poison that is grades, right, or this necessity
Ugh.
not to check for mastery, not to assess someone in a valid and meaningful way, but to give somebody a letter or number and say that is what you did right now, right? And then have that scenario be you're gonna wear the scarlet letter because we're never going back to those standards again because the pacing guide says we're past those standards, and if you didn't pass it that one time I gave it to you, then you just don't not gonna you're gonna have F's on your transcripts for the rest of the year, which you know. I think there shouldn't be grades in any grade level, but especially K5 because they're meaningless. Right? They're meaningless numbers that are attached that hurt his self-esteem. When I'm supposed to be learning how to do something, I shouldn't be punitive, be judged harshly for doing so. Go ahead, Webster.
Also, that's the assumption that all assessment is high quality, valid,
Mm-hmm.
and reliable assessment, which it is most decidedly not in many cases. And so, and I know you gave the qualifier of K5, but I think what you said is just as true for every grade. Like assessments are incredibly subjective. If it's not your full-time job to do assessment, then especially if you're coming from, if you didn't have a specific instruction in how to build assessments so that they are valid and reliable, and I don't know if that's part of most curriculum or not, but like yeah, like it's incredibly, and that's also assuming that you're applying that to the assessments that you're making.
Webs, when you go to your when you go to get your raise right from your peoples, right? Like, do they
Yeah.
test you? Do they test you?
So that's funny you should bring that up because this was a topic of conversation Oh yeah, Terry,
Uh,
100%. Grades
yeah,
are really for a small portion of parents who want them. That's
but,
all grades are. They're
but
communication to parents in a
we need
language
to
that they understand.
educate them folks. Be like, look, fam, this is stupid. It was stupid when you got grades. It's stupid now. Let's move
Yeah.
on. Like, let's not
Yeah.
entertain this foolishness no more. Go ahead, Webster.
So when I first moved to software development, and the way that we did pay raises when I was at ThoughtWorks is, you would go through and present like, hey, here are all the things that I did, and you basically made the case for the work that you've done in the past 6 months or whatever. And there was like a base percentage, and then depending on if you did some other things, then they might give you more than that. And I was telling a colleague about how teacher raises worked because they were asking me like, why did you end up leaving and whatever. I was like, well, I got my master's degree, but then they froze our pay. And so I didn't get the raise I was expecting. I was really disappointed, blah, blah, blah. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You got a master's degree and they said that you couldn't have your raise. I was like, yes, that's what happened. And they were like, are you serious? Like, you did the work. And then they were like, nah. I was like, yeah, that's what happened. That's why I'm here. And so no, there is no exam. I don't have to pay for continuing education credits. There is no cost for me to get a raise. There is no column moves. There are no step moves. It's just like, oh, it's been 6 months. Make your case. Oh, you did a bunch of things. Here's your raise.
But we would say portfolio style ish, right?
Oh, very much. Yeah. Like
Here's my
we would
stuff.
set aside an hour. I would give a presentation on all the different activities I've done and all that I've accomplished and the projects that I've worked on and the things I've learned. So yeah, it was more portfolio style.
If I did the work, here's what I did. This is the value I brought to your company. Here it is. All right, cool. Not here's the test webs for the 3 months that you were working. Here's the standardized so and so. Like the entire
I
the
showed a colleague the NEPF and they laughed so hard. They were like, this is so many things. This has to be like a 50-page paper that you have to write for this.
but how valid are all those little stupid indicators on there?
I mean, they're as subjective as your administrator doing the assessment.
Exactly, right. If my administrator likes me, I'm gonna pass the NEPF with no problems. If my administrator
Oh,
don't
and
like me,
how many
then
times, like, at one point I was told, like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't give out fours. Like, it doesn't matter that you earned it. We're not allowed to give them out. Then why is that a thing? Like, okay, so it's not an honest system anyway.
but I
So
mean
it's
that's
like
one of the
a fake
situations where
meritocracy.
but as a educator, all right, as an
Yeah.
educator,
Oh, and that's BS too. The fact that you could submit your CUs now and they can deny them
facts,
is
facts,
mind blowing. That
facts.
was another one that my colleagues, my software development colleagues, like are horrified and also laugh about. They're like, I can't even imagine.
Kelly, I don't even do it anymore. I got mine denied the first year when I was training people, leading people through how to do it, all kinds of stuff like that. And they were like, no, you're 90 some odd things short. Yeah, okay. I'm good. I'm not about to pay to get some, I'm good. We'll be fine. So again, this rocking chair, this illusion of movement as we're going forward, we're just moving, right? You're just creating more layers of crap. So right now, and I know that people are like totally on this survival kick, and I think that is the right mentality to have. Surviving is it, but because surviving means being resourceful, understanding what your enemy is, right? What you got in order to survive anything, and I'm going to quote the great John Rambo: "In order to win war, you got to become war." Right? There are some necessities in order to progress. And I think when we talk progress, my big thing now, and I know Webbs, you and Matt have been watching racing or whatever now, but race cars. And I have not, so I'm not, what I like to watch is the rally sports. And I got into rally sports when I was in Spain. I was studying journalism in Spain. And that for some reason is this big thing there. Rallycross is a big thing. And I like the idea that there were two people in the car, not one. I think that's really dope. You have the driver and you have the navigator. No navigator. Driver doesn't know where they're supposed to go, how to get there, what the best ways to get there. Do they throttle here? Do they cut back on the gas? Are they going to have to make a right turn, etc.? It's this partnership in the same vehicle, right? It's not a I'm going in alone type sport. Rally sports to me are amazing. I think get pit crews and the other racing sports I think are really dope. But having another human in the car with you, I didn't know that was a sport. So this is in transition from the old school. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so how do we get into the rally cars, the race car mentality where we're going to look at the team and say, how can we as a team move forward without me having to be me teacher in a classroom, walled off from society, and now I've got to deal with the rigor. Again, I think that's another reason why people throwing these assignments out. This, I'm going to make it look like things are happening. The rigor is still high in my class or whatever. But how do we look more at right now as a collaborative opportunity rather than I'm going to go it alone. I'm going to get stressed out. We got kid. I was reading a heartbreaking story about a teacher with children who just retired because she wanted to take care of her own kids. And you're like, all right, that's really messed up. Where was the safety net around this person to say, we don't need you to do 7 hours and 11 minutes worth of instruction. We need you to do like 2.5 hours and then use your other time for other stuff. Go ahead, Webbs.
Okay, I have beef with that. And if there are any Clark County teachers that are watching, I want to hear your thoughts. Because I remember at the beginning of the school year, and maybe Mike, you have some insight on this as well, they put out guidelines that said, here's the maximum number of time that kids in each grade band are supposed to be spending in active classroom time. That seems like it has gone out the freaking window. And all the classes that I've heard of, teacher or kids are like in front of the screen 7 hours a day, 11 minutes. Like, the frick, what happened there? Like, is it that you can't push back on it? Is it that like what? Somebody tell me. I want to know.
It's Sunday, so I'm gonna go biblical because it's Sunday. Okay. All right. So
Preach.
the parable of the Ethiopian eunuch in the New Testament. Ethiopian eunuch is sitting trying to decipher the Bible, and Paul comes upon him and says, "Hey, look, fam, you understand what you're talking about?" Like, nope. How can I understand this unless someone teach me? Right? You cannot tell people to go into this foreign land that is distance education, right? Without any actual Yodas, right? To go and say, this is what it should look like. There was no Yodas in the scenario, right? You can go and say, oh, it's 2 hours and so max for this and 45 minutes for this. What does that look like practically, right? What are the structures that need to be in place in order to facilitate that? How are you, and this is where I don't like decentralized government, right? I don't like how at least our school district is run with this. You know what? You make the decision as the building principal. I want a set of guidelines that says this is what we're doing. So everyone knows, not this, middle manager who now says, at our building, we're not going to do it that way. Okay. Do you have any experience doing this? Well, no. Then why are you making a decision, fam? You don't know what you're talking about.
And this is why I bring this up. Because if it was genuinely following those guidelines, that would give teachers these places in their day where they could meet with other teachers and have other conversations and build things together. That would be amazing. And they'd be a lot less stressed.
Webs. We ain't even got to worry about my thing. You're telling me, all right? You're telling me. Because there's no physical classrooms, right? People are talking about my kids. If you were able, say you're teaching kindergarten, I'm teaching kindergarten. You know the first thing I'm going to do? Bam, it's the Webbs Lane class. Ain't going to be no situation when I'm rolling solo. Webbs, you're going to teach the morning. I teach the afternoon. You're going to teach math. Neither one of us would be on the thing the whole day. That is not going to pop off because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to be that way. I would team teach all of the time.
So where do you think what's the reason that no one, or I'm not going to say no one, because I'm sure there are people that are out there that are doing that, but like, I wonder what the reason is that more teachers haven't decided to do that.
Two things. First, they're not thinking Einsteinian. I'm gonna say Einsteinian to say that, right? Again, the whole idea that imagination is greater, it's better than knowledge, right? You can know as much if you don't have the creativity necessary in order to move things and say, I'm gonna look at this situation and say, how can I maximize my effort? Me maximizing my effort is not staying on with 7 hours and 11 minutes on the Wi-Fi or on my Google Meet with my students. That's not going to work. There are seven at our school. There's seven kindergarten teachers. To me, it makes absolutely positively no sense that those seven teachers are working independently. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's been the first thing that I would have said. Like, yo, what we're gonna do is sit down and pop now. We're gonna slice this day into at least two teachers working with each other every hour or every whatever time period. Those kids are all there. We can break kids into smaller groups or whatever was necessary. The second thing I think is people are innately afraid of punishment, right? Of being caught. This isn't something
Yeah.
I'm supposed to do. And the Q boom thing. I'm gonna bring that stuff up. All right. So for those who don't know who Q is, Q had me on to do the little thing, and they had some rules, right? You had to do a slide deck. Had to be 9 slides. Couldn't be any video. Couldn't be no audio. And I was like, them rules suck. So I ain't about to do it. Do it the way I want to do it. All right. So I got rid of the slides. I put music and stuff and whatnot inside of it. But I did it in a way that it was like, wow, how did you do that? And that was, but it had to be dope. I had to risk the fact that I might have been laughed. If it didn't work, I've been laughed out of this scenario. If somebody could have got offended, oh my goodness, he broke the rules. He decided he wasn't going to lead. But at the same time, there has to be, I think every great educator has that, like, I don't really care streak. Like, I'm gonna do it this way, and if I get in trouble, what are you gonna do? Fire me? No. So I think that there is a penchant for people to say, well, this is what they told me to do, so I'm gonna do it exactly this way, even though they didn't give you an actual factual rundown on what that looks like. They just told you some numbers. They didn't say this is what a sample kindergarten school day would look like. It starts at so and so time. Then you do this, then you do this, and then you do that. It was like, hey, the max they can do is 120 minutes, and then you're like, okay, is that including specials? Because don't they have to go to specials? Is that including other things that might pop up? Like, what does that actually mean?
Two things. One, this reminds me of the whole reason why we write stories and have kickoffs and have desk checks. Because that's the conversation that we have during those times is like, are we all do we all have a common understanding of what the guidelines and expectations of this work are? And that's one of the things where I feel like that doesn't happen. Like someone throws out a dictate, because I've seen that go wrong, where like someone doesn't do a kickoff and they just go about their work and then they get to the end and it's like, oh, but what about this part and this use case? And they have to go back and work on it some more, and then they get done and they're like, okay, I'm done now. And they're like, oh, well, what about this case and this case and this case, and this doesn't work quite right. So it's this, you end up rocking chairing basically, because you're working, but you have to keep going back because you're not communicating with your stakeholders and the people who are involved in like what the outcome looks like. The other thing I was thinking about was I'm reading this book called Emotional First Aid, and it's all about how like, why don't we treat emotional injuries the same way with the same like effort and focus that we treat physical injuries? Like, because there are things that you can like prescribe to kind of soothe an emotional wound. And I wonder if some of the struggle there, no, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm going to just
Make it
qualify, make a disclaimer. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to make a disclaimer about that. But like, I wonder how much of the not wanting to fight that system is like that rejection. You know, teachers are heavily invested in their careers. That it is so much a part of your identity as a teacher that you get real wrapped up in like, I am a teacher and a teacher is me. And that is such a huge part of my identity that if that were to be threatened or questioned or taken away, it would be so hurtful. Because the very first chapter is all about rejection and how painful rejection can be. And especially professional rejection, because, you know, your professional circle can be your main contacts. I mean,
Right.
I'm guilty of that. The majority of my friends are all teachers because that was who I had the most contact with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like it talks about like how do you deal with that? What are like medicines that you can apply, like different strategies you can use for
Mm.
trying to fix those problems. But I wonder if that's some of it is like I don't want to buck this system because I might lose who I am, or someone might question or say that I'm not a good teacher because of that, and that would be profoundly hurtful to me. So I don't want to risk it.
Oh, I mean, I respect that. I think that's actually that is a pretty accurate statement. I guess the latent function of that kind of thinking is the stress of oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what we're doing through right now, right? Where at the beginning, and I've spoken this story many times. On March the 13th or March the 15th, when we decided not to come back, there should have been plans made for this eventuality in March the 15th, but there weren't.
Yeah.
And so you had a scenario in which, um, in the triage, which that was the end of that school year, you could have had a scenario where you said, you know what, this is busy work time now. We just want to check on kids, here's sandwiches and stuff like that. But teachers, we're going to have professional learning opportunities for you because there's a potential that the next school year might not start on time. It might start differently. It might look that would have been a proactive school system, right? But the fact that that proactivity didn't happen is concerning. Now, if I'm a participant, an employee of this school system, and you're now saying 3 minutes before the school year starts, hey, we're going to go to Canvas and we're going to do this and do that. And you're like, all right, dude, were you paying attention in March where these people were having difficulty setting up Google Classrooms and talk? There's a disconnect there that is so like troubling that you're like, all right, dude, I don't even think, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this for me as a just a person, right? If they didn't pay me another dime more for the rest of my career, but they respected me as a professional, looked for my input, and we changed the system meaningfully, I would stay a teacher for the rest of my life. Because I would know that I had an employee or employer rather who said, you know what, things aren't working. What do you guys think? These are the things that we're finding on the ground that aren't working. Great, let's change the system to reflect what we're finding on the ground. But that's not the case, right?
I mean, it's design thinking 101. Ask your customers how things are going. And I just don't understand why that doesn't happen. I worked on projects in the school district where I wanted to do that and was told no. It's so frustrating. It's like
not
it's
how we
so
do it.
basic. Like
That's
just
not how we
ask
used to do it.
people.
Yeah, but that's not how we're used to doing it. It's a top-down organization, right? And that's the beef that I have with the whole. You can't talk about change in the 21st century learning and all this other bullcrap that we were talking about if at the top you can give out mandates that are not fully funded mandates, they're not fully fleshed out mandates, that don't even make sense half the time. And you're like, okay, we could have told you because there's some people that they're teachers who are actually good at their jobs, right? That you could have said, look, fam, we don't think that's going to work. Mm-mm. And if you want this outcome to happen, these are the steps we need to have before this outcome happens to ensure that everyone's on board because we're only as strong as our weakest link here.
But even the upper levels of school districts tend to reflect the same like uh um siloed subjects that you see in the classroom, right? So there is a math department and a science department and a career technical services department. Like those are all like these siloed things. They're not, and you even see that in software development. You have the IT department, you have database engineers, and in companies that function that way, handoffs to different things are atrocious. They're terrible. You have to have representatives from all those areas on one team responsible for developing and maintaining a product in order to be successful. Otherwise, it ends up being this game of telephone, and getting things done is impossible because it has to go through 50 different checks. Like, I don't understand why this is still like functioning as such an old style system, like a system we know doesn't work. But again, and we've talked about this before, like education tends to be this silo. Like it doesn't change, it doesn't evolve. It's just like folks who are in education and function in education and then become administrators in education and then become, leaders of districts, but never have any other experience. So nothing ever changes. And it's so frustrating.
Fact. But like again, the race car ideology as opposed to the rocking chair situation, it's also like when you look at pit crews and you look when you look at pit crews, when that car pulls into the pit, everyone knows before that car gets in there what I'm supposed to do. Like there's no like everyone's what they need to do. Everyone's versed on it. They practice it. We know what we need to do. We get the car in and out in what 3, 4, 5 seconds. Boom, 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 gun, and we're good.
4 seconds is a really long time.
Huh?
4 seconds is a really long time.
Yes, but it's an even longer time if we don't know what the devil we're doing. Like if we just threw a pit crew together, it was like, hey, today we're gonna be changing out tires on a car that's coming in hot, and you've never done that before, and like this is a problem. I mean, but
just throw up like, okay, figure it out. It's gonna take you forever. Whereas in a professional like F1 pit crew, there is like one person to take a tire off. Actually, there's two people to take the tire off. There's one person who does the drill. There is one person who cranks the car up. They have all these symbols, and it's like a operating room. Everything is very scripted out. Everyone knows exactly what their role is, and everyone else knows what everyone else's role is, so that if something goes wrong, like they know what to do. There are backups
and also everyone is as valuable as the next person, right? If I mess my job up, I've messed your job up as well. Like there's this cooperation, this inherent cooperation that if it doesn't exist, that car doesn't get back back into the race. And so, we're over, but we're going to keep it going. That that is what is missing, right? This functional, in order to go forward, everyone has to know their job. They have to trust the person beside them, because again, if I start taking that tire off, right, and that driver hits the accelerator, bad things are going to happen to me and my feet probably, right? There's an inherent trust that has to happen there. Webb, you had a brainstorm.
I think going back to the baseball thing, right? So if the pitcher, throws their best pitch, but the hitter ends up hitting it and it goes way out into the outfield, like it requires this chain of passes to get it back to where it needs to go to stop that player from getting all the way around the bases. I think that's another reason why I feel like baseball relates to teaching a lot, is like it is that you have to rely on one another. It isn't a solo thing that you can do. Like your school won't be successful if we're not all relying on one another and rowing in the same direction. Even if it's like we always say, 1% better every day, atomic habits. And I think James Clear has a great post about moving versus, what is it? No, moving versus progressing, which also Denzel Washington apparently said in a speech. What do you call that when people are graduating? Commencement speech. But yeah, the difference between moving versus progressing. And progressing doesn't have to mean you master every tool and every strategy all at the same time. Progressing can be, okay, I'm making little tiny moves in the right direction. Like I said before, if you're, I'm just doing this so that I can get my grades in, you're not a bad person for that. You're trying to survive, but be cognizant of it and move yourself in a direction so that you do that less and less.
And I know we're over, but I'm just going to share this because I share this at least 55 million times every time we do stuff. When we start talking about progressing, right? And I am a Schleckiite. I think that most of the stuff he's talking about, or what the research is showing, is like commonsensical stuff. But really starting back at, if you're talking about classroom management, if we're going to use that term or whatever, looking back at is what we're doing valuable for our customer? If it is not valuable for your customer, why are you doing it? Now, that question is loaded. Now, if you go and say, my customers' values and needs are at odds with my employer's values and needs, then you have a conundrum that you have to figure out. Am I going to continue to give my customers something that they do not want and do not need just because my employer is saying so? And is my employer even cognizant of what my customer wants or needs because they're so far removed from the self-facing interactions that both myself and my student are dealing with? And so I really dig Phil Schlecky's work. My wife really kind of put me on to him. But it's somebody I'll come to the website usually once or twice a month to kind of see if there's new stuff here. But the Learn With Us stuff, they've got there's stuff that you can pay for or whatever. But he has a lot of PDFs and things are on here. And I'm gonna challenge you. Don't worry about digital tools because there are going to be tools around, tools are going to change, tools are going to move around or whatever. But philosophies, finding your philosophy in your niche that says, this is what I value, and this is how I'm going to get what I value to my students. And at the same time, I'm going to listen to what they value and ensure that that is baked into all my lessons, all the work, all the things that my students are expected to do. With the fact that as a teacher, my core job, the core, whether it's getting to know them socially, emotionally, or whatever, is to ensure that when they leave the system, they can get a job, support themselves, support whatever people they bring into the world, their dog, their cat, their grandma, whatever. This person is a citizen who's able to compete, and they cannot look back on their 12 years of public education and say, you know what, I wasn't actually prepared to be able to live in the world that I'm now faced with, and now I'm going to make decisions that perhaps I wouldn't make if I would have been given the proper tools in order to do what you need to do. Webbs.
I'm going to say find your stock car partner. Like, that'd be my advice. If you're looking for some concrete something that you can do, find your Mike. Find your person who is going to, be there to bounce ideas off of, to lesson plan with. Because I am a firm believer, like when I came into software development, we have this concept of pairing, which is really just working with a buddy. I find that pairing on things makes stuff so much easier. And I have never been so aware of how working on something alone makes my work suffer. So I can draft something on my own, but I want to put that in front of someone else and have a conversation over it with someone else, because it is infinitely better when I talk to someone else about it and have their ideas influence the thing that I'm building. Mike and I meet once a week and to go over all of our business things and to hash out ideas. And we do these little chats and everything. Like, find your stock car partner, because that is probably the thing that is going to carry you the farthest. And that person may be someone at your school, or it may be someone who's at a school across the country or in another country or whatever. Someone that you click with, someone you connect with, who can be there not only for pedagogical and professional support, but also for like emotional support. And also, your administrator is not the only source of feedback about what you do, especially now that you can invite literally anyone, any other teacher into your classroom to observe. You can rewatch yourself on recordings. That is not your only source of feedback. So I would encourage you to find other people to give you feedback on your teaching. And also to find people that you consider sort of, folks you look up to. I still have regular meets with old tech leads from when I was at ThoughtWorks, because they helped me advance in my software development career, not only in the technical aspect, but also in team building and leadership and working with people. And that has been such a powerful lesson. I don't know why I didn't learn that when I was an educator and when I was in the classroom. Maybe because teaching lends itself so much to isolation when you are in a building, but you're not in a building anymore. Those walls are gone. So connect with other people. Send me an email. I'll talk to you.
But also, Google Classroom, you can invite another teacher and other students from other schools into a Google Classroom. Same thing with Canvas. Like, there's no reason for you to be teaching by yourself. Like, essentially, you could divide things. This is the opportunity for that. Your best teacher friend, you two can teach a class together and just say, hey, we're going to do this unit together as a mixed class from my school and your school. All our kids are going to get to know one another. We're going to do Google Meets together and do stuff like that. There is no limits right now to where your creativity and your imagination can take you, other than the ones that we're imposing on ourselves. And I just got a text message from a teacher, and we're gonna go and do this, cross curricular kind of Canvas course that I'm gonna set up. We're gonna just create the course and throw everybody in it and rock and roll. And her kids can do it, and my kids can do it. Well, bada bing, we're done. That keeps some stress off of you, some stress off of me. The kids are still gonna have fun. They're gonna get to learn different new people in the city. Have conversations, probably play Roblox together with new people they didn't know existed. So there's an opportunity for us to really go and lessen the stress by maximizing and focusing on not some of the little funky tools that are like people are like spawning to, but learning your LMS and hacking the LMS so that less work is happening with more positive results. I think is very important. But also hacking your live sessions and not using those live sessions as I'm about to teach you a lesson. But hey, I'm gonna check in on you. How you guys doing? What Halloween costumes you guys are going to be dealing with? Let's play a game, and you know that your lesson is back in Google Classroom or in Canvas. As soon as we get off this call, anybody got any questions about what you did last night? Nope. Great. Go get your work done tonight, and then send me a G chat in 25, 30 minutes if you have any problems. But I think that lessens the it it enhances the social emotional connection between you and your students, and it stops the pressure of, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I've got 17 things due for Miss So and So, and I don't understand these things due. Especially for students who never met you, and I've got enough. I teach all 846 students at that school, and it's really difficult to learn from somebody you've never physically met before. It's difficult. So that's another thing to look into, fostering those relationships and in amplifying the time that you have face to face with. I want to know what your favorite color is. I want to know what your favorite food is. I want to know what you don't like. I want to know if you rode your bike this morning or whatever. And maximizing that time and saying the I've already recorded the lesson about the math lesson today. It's 10 minutes. It's in Flipgrid. Watch the little thing. If you got questions, email exists in the G chat. If my computer's already on, bing, so and so has a question. Yo, I'm gonna send you a Google Meet link right now. Let's deal with it. Instead of this kind of shotgun approach, and then the kids are still failing class. So, Webbs, anything to close us out?
No, I think we've said plenty.
All right, indeed. We kind of went ham tonight. Went a little ham, but it's all good. Um, Other things, follow us on Twitter, on the Facebook, and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But also, we're going to be kicking off. We've got a help forum that we're working with one of the little consulting groups that we're working with. But help.theintelligence.com. Help web say say the web address. I'm getting tongue tied.
Help.theintelligenthoodlums.com.
So you got plenty of stuff there. We're gonna be throwing out. We got videos on the Facebook. There are videos on Facebook. There's videos on
YouTube.
YouTube as well. Go check stuff out. Also, just holler. Thursday we'll be here with something else. I don't know what we're gonna talk about on Thursday yet, Webs. We'll figure it out. It's gonna be a long week because Monday is fastly approaching in 5 hours, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
God bless America. God bless Lesotho. I still did not find out what you call Lesotho. Lesothians. What do you call people?
Lesothans?
Lesothans, maybe. I don't know.
I feel like it's Lesothans.
If anybody's from Lesotho that's listening to this, which probably they're not, but I want to know what the actual proper term for somebody from Lesotho is.
I feel like it's tomorrow morning in Lesotho.
It is actually.
Yeah.
All right, God bless Lesotho anyway, and the Lesothans, whatever they're referred to. I'm gonna find out the next time we do this broadcast. I'm gonna refer to them by their proper